GSL Code A. In the upper left here in the red with absolutely beautiful mech play.
Bbyong.
There he is. And his opponent, the final boss in the teal, the bottom right, he is known as...
Wait for it.
DongRaeGu.
Korean commentator was like really working on finishing his thought, and we're following, of course, the Korean stream. So I was like, wait, did they already announce it? Am I missing something?
Oh my god!
Okay. Well, I love the energy that our MC brings on the Korean side of things. He's enthusiastic about everything.
Yeah, he's
man.
great. Now the barracks is coming down here with a gas for Bbyong.
Yeah, he's gonna do Reaper Scout. I feel like the reason why we saw Mech on that last map is because Bbyong was just like, I think I can get a third base for free. By the way, let's talk a little bit about the openings last game. Like DRG rushed into speed with a really late third base against a really fast third base for Bbyong. So Byung's economy was awesome, and like DRG had 3 speedlings on the map that couldn't really do anything. So he had all the lost mining time of those 3 drones that were mining gas. It could have been mining minerals. He could have had a much faster third base. So all these things in the early game are really important to consider. I think DRG picks this map because he thinks he can win with a similar style to what Impact showed us in the first best of 3, and I just don't expect Bbyong to mech here. If he were to, I think he would have meched more often than the first best of 3 itself.
I wonder actually. It did seem like that build was set up specifically for DRG.
Yeah.
And specifically on that map because they do know the first map in his series, right?
Yeah.
So they knew that was going to be Alterzim Stronghold. But yeah, I'm curious to see if he's actually going to mech on these newer maps that we have here where, mech is something you really have to have mapped out. You can't just wing it with mech because every positioning of each individual tank early on is important. How exactly you're going to hide the fact that you go mech because mech's not something you just blatantly do. You can't be brazen about it.
Yeah, what's funny is that last game DRG saw it, he killed a siege tank, and he even verified right when he saw the 5 factories. And it still just crushed him. That's a game I'd like to go back and study or even, ask Bbyong about if I have a chance.
Well, it looks so bulletproof. I wonder if there was an error in the Swarm host play. I actually thought we were just going to see direct into mutas.
Yeah. Well, I thought
maybe a small number of Swarm hosts to buy time. But, I mean, look at how many Swarm hosts he actually got.
30 in total. It's like too
that
many.
could have been a lot of mutas.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of mutas. And, I don't know. I felt like maybe mass muta and then some spine crawler, and then as he leaves his base, go in there and wipe out everything, and then just go back.
Maybe he misjudged and thought there were more Thors and less siege tanks, but in fact there were enough siege tanks to crush the Locusts, and there were like not that many Thors. And then when he tried to switch to Muse at the end, it was too late, and he had already the Thors out. Look at this taste. It's actually going into fast 3cc again. Doesn't mean he's going mech, but the possibility is definitely still there.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what he does with the factory now. And he's going to put that on the reactor. So I think we're actually going to have a pretty normal game here.
I think so.
Of Hellions with Banshees.
Yeah. See if he drops this tech lab in sight of the Overlord. Nope. Going to make a Marine to ward him off first. Oh, he cancels the Marine after the Overlord leaves. That's sneaky. I like it.
Sneakery.
And actually, did the Overlord see? I don't think so.
It's hard to say.
It's like, really, it really is. Because the camera shot wasn't even on the Overlord when we hit that tech lab come down, but I don't think he saw it. I'm pretty sure Byung's got a much better knowledge of Overlord vision than I do. Waited till the exact moment where it was out of range.
Then again, I mean, how sneaky is that really just to make a Marine when the buildings are positioned like that?
Yeah.
There's a starport above that, a factory with a reactor in it below it. If this is not the most common building placement in all of StarCraft II that leads itself to basically one style of play, which is Banshees, Hellions. The barracks is simply the add-on maker. I don't know how much he's going to fool there by making a Marine.
That's a good point. And to be honest, not only is it the most common setup of where the buildings are, but it's like at this point you look at it and it's always at the top of the ramp too, because that's how Terran works. It's like the most obvious trick in the book if he's trying to trick him that way. With this, he still hasn't actually started any more Marines. He's not using his barracks for anything. That can be oftentimes an indicator of mech because he doesn't want to mace any of his Marines, but there it goes. Stim is, of course, the first sign that we're going to see the bio for sure, and we'll have to wait and see if he decides to switch after Cloak is done back into that Stim on that Tech Lab. A few spores being added right now, 3 of them. He's prepared for the Banshees.
Now let's see how he actually uses the Banshees compared to the last game that we saw. He did a lot of damage. I'm sorry, not the last game that we just saw. I meant the first best of food that we saw today. He did a really good job about doing a very large amount of damage. This map, however, is structured a little bit differently. The way the minerals are actually positioned, you can go between the bottom base and the main here and do some harass. And as you can see here, you can also park over this ledge. But it's hard with a small number of Banshees early on to damage all 3 of them at once. There's a lot of travel time in between them.
Yeah. By the way, double armory. Looks like we are going to see mech. So this is so interesting to me that Bbyong takes 2 completely different approaches to 2 different players. And that's a sign of a good player, that in 2 best of 3s in the same group, in the same matchup, you can prepare completely different styles of play. That means he's obviously well-versed in both bio and harassment.
You know what we're seeing here, man? Can I interrupt for a second? You know what I think we're actually seeing here is, for the first time ever, specifically in the Korean meta, where the Protosses are dominant, we're seeing Terran players that don't have to be the best in the world at TVT.
That's true. That's actually really
rare. That's never happened before. So now we're having, I mean, honestly, how often, I guess, I'm thinking all the way back to Wings Liberty. I always cite MVP because he was basically the best player at that time, but he was really a good, solid TVT player. And that was actually Brood War TVT that was just transferring over because that matchup wasn't too different from Brood War TVT. But, I mean, this is the first time we're really seeing a Terran player. And I'm not saying that Bbyong is bad or anything, but I'm saying right now TVT doesn't matter. It matters the least out of all 9 possible matchups.
That's something that I never really thought about. And when you think about the Terran players that had success during that TVT era, a lot of them have completely fallen off or disappeared. Even if you think about the players like Ensnare and like Hope Torture that like made a career mostly off of imbalanced maps and Terran versus Terran, because that was the most common matchup.
TVT just translated right from Brood War over to...
Yeah, that's actually like a really good point that like has not been discussed enough, I feel. You hit it on the head, Tasteless.
Thank you. Well, I mean, think about it. Like, because his mech was actually terrifying, and I don't recall a lot of mech games with Bbyong. He's not somebody that you think of mech, but in this case, yeah, he seems to be very good at both. Very flexible. I mean, he won it with bio splitting, which rarely happens. Normally you win with like these dramatic pushes and slowly crush the Zerg. In this case, he just kind of outmaneuvered him. And then in this last game, he actually pushed easy peasy, maxing out before the Zerg did with mech. I think that's why he's so solid. And Bbyong's very good at obviously TVP as well, which is, you just have to be if you're going to be Terran and survive nowadays. But this is the kind of Terran right now that's making it work. And maybe that's why we didn't see a lot of Bbyong back when TVT was more of a relevant matchup.
Yeah. Although he lets these links in, it's not going to be too big of a deal. I mean, he's going to lose some SCVs. Actually, if he loses 1 Thor, this is all worth it. And actually, he's going to get 1. No way he gets 2, right? Okay.
No. The Banshees are doing way too much damage. The Lings are coming up here now, and they're going to go for this tank, and getting 1 tank is also worth it. And this is enough to really put a damper on the entire mech build here. Not to mention it's been completely exposed. If there was
he's like broken the toe of the army, you know? It's like a bit more awkward now.
Oh, well said, actually. I like that. He's I mean, his mech has been slowed down, and the reason why that matters, guys, is because Thors and siege tanks increment out a lot slower than Marines do.
Yeah, it just takes much longer to build.
If you lose Marines to excuse me. By the way, that Muta flock being deflected. If you lose Marines to SCVs, it's fine. You just keep remaking them at roughly the same rate. But when you lose, a Thor, for instance, well, that took a long time to make. You have less factories than you would barracks if you were making just infantry.
You can't reactor siege tanks either, so you need another factory, which costs 100 more gas. So that's why you just can't make them quickly. The build time obviously is much longer too, because if tanks built as fast as Marines did, we'd have a completely different game entirely that would be only Terran versus Terran. That's actually a thought that I want to look more into, though, about what you said about some of the better players in Wings Liberty just being so good at TVT, because once all the Zergs and Protosses got defeated early on, that was the matchup that mattered the most in so many of our GSL finals even. Well, this big group of Hellions over here is going to be shut down. There's just so much creep. I mean, DRG is really a master of creep spread, man. I look at his creep. There are a few players that like are really, really good at this. I remember Seal back in the day was really good
yeah,
at this.
Seal was very good. I almost forgot about him.
Yeah, Scarlet is also like quite good at creep spread.
She's very solid at that. Now we have lots of mutas gathering up down here. The Swarm hosts are, by the way, DRG sticking to his guns from the last game, saying nope, Swarm host is the way to go on this. Let's see how effective this actually is. He's got an interesting setup. The mutas and the roaches down here at the bottom left. The Swarm hosts over at the bottom right of the Terran's base. Can he actually do enough damage? Terran does not have that big push momentum. In fact, swapped supplies here from the previous game. Oh my god, though! This could change everything!
It certainly could, Tasteless. Here we go. He's getting one of them. I think he's going to get 2 more, and then he's probably going to try to back out and gets 1 more.
Can't believe he didn't get that one that has like 1 HP.
Yeah, how did that happen? Actually, for trading some only mineral units with how Terran works with mules, I think that's a pretty good trade. Keep
that's
the Zerg
fine.
army pretty low.
No, I mean, this is why we call it the mineral dump, is you just have these extra minerals. What can you make? Well, I guess you can make Hellions. Now, he's upgrading 2-2 here.
Yeah, 2-2 coming out, and 3-3 actually for now the mech army. 2-2 just finishing. He's really hitting all the beats with those upgrades, not wasting any time. This one Thor here makes all the difference. Are you really going to commit to that siege tank? How many muses is it going to cost you? It's pretty expensive.
Now, I'm going to be really impressed if he can actually push across this map again this time here. The Locusts are already in position. Now, look at how much minerals and gas are banked up here. He can remake, for instance, let's say that Terran pushes out and does substantial damage, dropping the supply. He can remake a lot of roaches, for instance.
Yeah.
Or any other set of units. All the roaches with the minerals and gas would be perfect.
And the longer this goes on, he's going to be able to make more mutas much more effectively than we saw in Game 1. And he's going to have +2 this time. I mean, if you look at the creep spread, it's almost like a hand is reaching out to grab Bbyong. That's how far up it is. He's got the right side of the map almost completely covered. Like, the only thing that's left is like the sensor tower that can see the tumor moving forward. That's how far it is, right? I mean, if he moves it any further forward, it's going to be into a siege tank.
Whoa. Roaches and mutas now coming up over here. And those are going to head towards the main, but get blocked up there by the depots. More Hellions and siege tanks out, driving these roaches back out here. Are they going to go for that command center? But it gets repaired in time.
Yeah, and that's going to become a planetary. So with that planetary finished up here, it's going to be much more difficult to do little things like this. I think it's a good choice because that's the one big backdoor area that DRG has to work with. And to make this more effective, DRG could even potentially spread his creep to the left side of the map. He's been much more diligent about the right side, though. And here comes that push. He pulls the SCVs. Much slower timing than last time, though. And the composition this time has only 1 Thor, so he's very vulnerable to Mutalisk. Which, by the way, speaking of which, are now killing his natural that has no Thors at.
Yeah, nothing here to defend just yet. Looks like he's remaking some Thors now here. Swarm hosts count at 9. 32 mutas out currently. Now, okay, look, the Terran has made some space here on the map for himself, but is that really enough? I mean, taking out the little teal blips on the map is not going to cut it in the long run. Right now, DRG looks to be in complete control of this game. Terran might be able to take that 4th base location over there, and by the way, he's going to push out even further here, but the Mutaflock over in the center left, now moving up. I don't know if Bbyong has enough defense to survive this.
Yeah, the building plating just finished, so that's going to buy him a little bit more time on his hit points. That PDD also still being around pretty useful. High Sec's not done yet, but 3 more Thors pop out of the factories right now. That's going to ward these mutas off for now. And, like you said, this clearing up the creep is taking so long. It's like he's trying to, instead of sweeping up a bunch of dust on the floor, he's trying to pick it up with his hands. And there's just way too many mutas here. Only 1 Thor in this comp. He's going to lose probably every single Viking. That one Seeker missile looking a little bit puny, a little bit funny here. And I think DRG has kind of just won this.
This is the killing blow here because, oh wait, hold on, there's Thors up here. But if he takes out these Thors, I mean, that's basically
it, right?
Because he can take out all the tanks, and the tanks, I mean, usually the game ends when the player loses all the tanks, because that's what he spent the entire game
building.
Building up to. And what, he probably lost about 14 tanks back there?
Yeah,
That's...
You can't lose that. It's the backbone of the army. If you lose that, then he can beat you with anything, basically. We could just make a bunch of roaches and kill you. He's got the bank to do it. I don't think Bbyong is getting his way out of this one. I mean,
yeah, we should be going on to game number 3. I think a lot of this had to do with that harass early on. He really slowed down his opponent. And, I mean, well played to DRG. I like that he was able to stick with his initial strategy and show how it's supposed to work. That map is very different from the previous map. The way you can maneuver around it, there are 2 points where the Zerg can attack into the Terran, which is something DRG really utilized. Whereas on Ultra Zim, you can pretty much put siege tanks on the high ground, and if you're good and economical with your positioning and placement for your units and your structures, you can usually survive that. But in that last game, he got in there with the Swarm host on one side, the Mutas, the Roaches on the other, took out a Thor, took out a tank, and that's usually the beginning of the mech army being slowed down. Even 1 or 2 tanks means they can expand much later and push much later.
Exactly.
Because it takes a while for that third base to kick in.
DRG got so much more done that game, too. I think Bbyong, if I'm Bbyong here, because this is the winner's match, so you don't have to try to mech to beat DRG. DRG seems to be somewhat weak to mech, but not in game 2. And yeah, I think on his map pick, he could just go back to Bio like we saw in the series against Impact, because he's clearly very good at that. And it might also throw DRG for a bit of a curveball for him to switch it up in this series. Let's see what map he picks. That's a great thing about winning game 1. It's just...
yeah, really gives you momentum on your side.
This has been a great series, though, by Bbyong. I really appreciate how he's played this, because he switched up from how he played the match that DRG was sitting watching, on the sidelines. He plays a completely different style, sticks to his guns in game 2 because he can, and he's 1 win away from just going straight to Code S. And now he's in game 3 where it's his map pick, so I just feel like the way he's played this series has been about as smart as it gets. Coming to Builders. I guess we don't know what map it's going to be. We're going to find out.
It's a mystery, oh boy! Game number 3, the winner here is going to move on to the GSL Code S, the most prestigious StarCraft II tournament of all time.